Okay, we'll just start from there. So, what had happened was he told me that he was going to give me a gun whenever he came back, a handgun, a revolver. And you use it, you aim it at somebody, you better have every intention to use everything that a cop tells you whenever they give you a gun, right? Okay, so at the time I was dating another professor from another university, right? So I call him and I'm like, my dad's gonna give me a gun for this mess. And he said the same thing as about that, make sure you have every intention of using it. I know how to use a handgun. But he was like, I'll take you to the shooting range. We can check it out and see how you feel with this gun. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I call my dad and I'm like, we're gonna go to the shooting range with a gun. This was after he gave it to me. He had given me the gun and I had it in my possession. I had the gun safe and everything. And I remember this. I called him and told him that I was going to go to the gun range. He called me back, like, within maybe 15 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. I don't know. It was so fast. And he was like, you can't take that gun to the gun range because you can't shoot it. He said that it wasn't lined up right. And what he told me was that it was split lead. And whenever I went to the cops with all this information, they told me about that was that they had never heard that term before. They didn't know, never heard that term before. Okay. So the thing with the guy, he had schizophrenia. He was incredibly confused. The one that was trying to come into my home. I don't know who he was after. So I called the priest that is, I don't remember what kind of church it was. They're like Catholics, but they're not Catholics. I cannot remember. But anyway, he was next door and I'd already met him and been through his church and everything. And I called him and I told him, that this guy, this is what he thought. He thought the dollar store, my house, and the church were like this holy trinity thing. Somebody had told him this, and that there was evil, that I was possessed with the evil spirits, and that the dollar store was, and that the guy at the house next door, and he had become obsessed with us. And so I called the priest. Anyway, not too long after that, the church was sold, and then they bulldozed it. There's none of that's left anymore. It's gone. But another crazy thing there were so many crazy things. Another crazy thing. Okay, so she had all of these grapes growing along the fence line in her backyard that were grapes. But right above them were those things that look like grapes, but they're not. They're some kind of Canadian things, and they look like grapes. And if you eat them, they're poisonous. Anyway, she had that above it. So they were kind of mixed in together, and that was very odd to me. I mean, because I think they're called moonberries or something. I don't remember, but they're incredibly toxic. And then it was insane. It was all insane. And she had all this food, and she was like, y'all can eat the food if you want to while you're there. It's all expired. All of it was expired. She had all this, and there was just so many crazy things. And so of course I didn't take the gun to the gun range, and I didn't shoot the guy. And I had been calling the cops, and I went and I told my neighbors what was going on, and they're like, oh yeah, we've seen him in the front yard, the guy. And I was like, can y'all call 911 if y'all see him again? And somebody had put some crazy stuff into this poor kid's head. And so I had received some information that I needed to go immediately and talk to someone about my dad's new wife. And the person that I needed to talk to was a judge. And I did, and all of that is some crazy stuff that I won't go into. But they know about her. But anyway, going back, so we're just sitting there, me and my mom, one day out on the couch, and I get a ring at the doorbell. And he's standing there. The guy that had been coming to my windows, he's standing there. And for some reason, I had to open the door to him, and I was terrified. And he was sitting there, pack of cigarettes and a knife, just kind of standing there. And he asked for someone. I don't know who he was asking for. I said, they're not here. And then he asked again. I said, I don't know who that is, but they're not here. And he said, thank you. and he sat down on the steps for a moment with his knife. And, you know, I was trying to be real calm. My mom was calling 911, and that was whenever they served him with a no trespass. And I think that he had been picked up after that because he was homeless. He was so dirty. But he didn't ever bother me after that again. But come to find out, he had worked for my dad's wife. He had worked for her. She had been, this was somebody she knew the entire time. All of these things that she did, like turning off the alarm, all of these things she did, knowing that guy. So anyway, I finally found a place, and I was like, I'm gonna move out. So I told my dad, and he was moving out of state, and I was like, thank God this can finally end. And we were standing in the front yard in the driveway or something, and I remember looking at him, and I told him, I was like, if you have a will, take me out of it. I want nothing. I want nothing to do with this. I don't want y'all to know where I am. I don't want her to know where I am. And he was like, this is my wife. If you don't have anything to do. And for the first time in my life, my dad always looked so big and scary and everything. He looked small. He looked small. He looked like a small, diminished man. And at the end of the conversation, at the beginning, I was shaking. I was shaking so bad. I was shaking all over. And he's like, you're shaking. I was like, yeah, I'm terrified. And he goes, of what? And I said, of her. Of her. She's crazy. And so the thing is that we're done. We're out of there. We're moved on. I haven't talked to him since. I won't. Don't have a need to. But that was the nightmare that we went into from the Coleman situation. Anyway, much love. Bye.